Oh, let me get myself together here. Okay. Ooh, I'm trying to center this clock behind me. Okay. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. I pray all is well with everyone. And today's Friday, like I promised. First of all, I want to thank God for a beautiful day. I hate to say this to my Delaware family, but I'm in sunny Florida. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so I just want to share that. A lot of you are not going to be happy with me, but there it is. It's a beautiful day in Florida. And I thank God for giving me and blessing me with another day of life. So, with that said, I just want to thank everyone for all the support and the encouragement that I've been getting from my life, telling my story to my children, and hopefully that will extend in helping others who are in situations that I faced in my marriage and in my life. So today I'm going to read another letter that I've written to my girls, and it's going to be about ancestry. One of my favorite ministers, Pastor Joel Olstein, always talks about generational curses. So basically, it's what transpires in our family, which is not, that is bad, that we continue on with that infliction or that pain through the generations. And it shouldn't have to be, because as Christians and as followers of Christ and God, we should be able to figure out a way to get rid of those problems so we may put out a good family unit, or what the way God wanted a family to be. Anyway, last week I actually had to basically try to defend myself as to what I'm doing to a family member. And so again, as I began saying, these infractions not considered something we should take seriously in many cultures. And in the culture I come to, the Ghanaian culture I come to, I'm not here to offend anybody, but I am speaking my truth. So if it offends someone, that's their problem. They need to deal with it, because I'm trying to help myself and my children and others, before me and after me, if they choose to listen to my story and apply it to their lives and know that these things are real, and they can actually not, they can hurt you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes even death. So it's real, and we need to talk about it. We talk about everything on this planet that we shouldn't be talking about, but the things that put together a family, a happy family, a godly family, we always put to the side, sweep under the rug, and let it go by. And then our children follow up by picking up the steps that, we have many times ignored to deal with and talk about. So last week, a family member actually scolded me for trying to deal with a situation that one of my daughters was going through. She basically called me and told me my daughter's a grown woman and I should, mind my own business, which is something that Ghanaians do a lot. It takes a village to raise a family, but Ghanaians, I'm speaking just of my culture and what I've seen growing up. So please don't be texting me and saying you're wrong. This is what I dealt with. And I'm talking solely Milady Simpson's story. So some Ghanaians generally, or family members, have a tendency of telling you what to do with your children, but not so the right things to do or say to your children. So in the culture, they have a tendency of telling you, oh, you can't do this with your child. You can't scold your child, or scold your child. So they pick and choose what they think or believe is right for them, and not necessarily what's right for you or your child. So I got scolded by a family member who's telling me I shouldn't have said something to one of my daughters because she's a grown woman. And in my sassy, sometimes not so diplomatic Milady way, as most of you know me for, I simply told her to mind her own business. And my child is my child until she's 150 and I'm 1,000 years old. She'll still be my child. So I'm not going to force my opinions on her. I simply want to talk about what the issue is. Then we can figure out how to address it. If we do not have the immediate answers, we can, talk to others who may be able to help us, is what I'm trying to do now. It's not telling people what to do. It's about listening, suggesting, making references sometimes, but ultimately working together as a team to help each other out. So today, my letter is about ancestry. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it. And please feel free to share this because it's a big problem. It's a big problem, not just for women, but for also men who become abusers because they've been abused or they've grown up in abusive homes. So it goes both ways. I'm not saying it's just about women. It's for everyone. So please feel free to share. So here we go. My story, ancestry. My angel daughters. I don't have any set rules or any particular order to write these letters. I'm just writing whenever I have a moment. These days, a lot of people are fascinated with ancestry and genealogy. They spend money and time searching and researching their past through these programs, but what are they finding? And what are this information telling them? Does this information they find give them an in-depth knowledge of family members they seek? Does it tell them about their day in, day in, out lives, behaviors, dislikes, routines, struggles, or strengths? Or is it simply touching surfaces of people with secrets which may help us understand some of the behaviors we exhibit? In this letter, I'll tell you a little bit about some of my ancestors. As you know, I came to America in my teens. Your grandpa, Kenneth, came years early to pursue the American dream and offer us a chance of a better future than the one he grew up in. He worked as a merchant seaman, so he traveled to many countries, and when the opportunity presented itself, he decided the United States was a country for our future. He grew up in a small coastal village with his mom, dad, an older brother, a sister, and a younger brother. His father, my grandfather, and his older brother were alcoholics. Your uncle, Kojo, and Michael and I will visit them every summer to give mom a break. I remember my grandma and my grandpa and my uncle going fishing every morning and staggering home in the middle of the night ridiculously drunk. My grandmother never said anything bad, but just went about her daily routine. We were not supposed to talk about grandpa's condition because it was rude and disrespectful. Children are to be seen and not heard. Unfortunately, this rule will follow you no matter how old you are. You are forever a child. You only become an adult only when everyone before you is dead. Anyway, my grandpa was killed while totally drunk and crossing the street in a neighboring town. My uncle's wife eventually left him, and their children were raised by my grandmother. By the way, he was also physically abusive. Grandma had to raise these children and also take care of him over a period of years until he died of liver cirrhosis. My dad never drank or smoked for his whole life for this reason. Now, my aunt married an abusive man who was a polygamist. He was verbally abusive and a deadbeat dad who believed all his wives should be financially responsible for their children, including their education. They took care of them as well as watched them they took care of him as I watched them protesting and pleading with him to treat them a little better than he did. As a young girl, I used to be so angry at my aunt when he came to the house and argued with her and demanded things of her. This is a submissive wife, as women in that culture are raised to be. My mom's father was also a polygamist who left my grandma with 7 children and pursued a career as a village chief with his other wives. All this is acceptable in the society I grew up in. The question is it okay? We will later get into a deeper conversation about my culture and the social and moral traditionals which are deemed okay and reluctantly accepted because it's the way things are, it's tradition, and you are wrong if you try something else which may better your life or living situation. Again, it's taboo to talk about the wrongs which have been inflicted on everybody in the culture. You are a woman or a child, or that's the way it is. Simply that. I don't know all the details of how when my parents met, but Dad was always away. Mom raised us not with the iron fist, but in a radical approach, the way I raised you. That was very unusual for that time period in the culture, but I later found out that she had traveled abroad and was taken in by how children were taught and raised in a loving but firm home and not a dictatorship way. My uncle, my mother's brother, was always called in when Mom needed a father figure, and he was also always gentle with his approach. Whenever we woke up and heard Uncle's voice, we knew someone did something wrong. But no matter what it was, he simply put up a straight, firm face, give you a lecture, and later take you out for a treat. It wasn't easy raising 3 children, but Mom made it look effortless. She always told us wonderful stories about Dad, his work, and how someday we'll migrate to America. Meanwhile, I saw her crying many times when she thought she was by herself. I knew there was no financial help coming from Dad, but Mom always made excuses for him. I once heard a conversation between Mom and Dad's sister. Dad wanted Mom to send us to live with his mom. Later on, I snuck and read some of the letters Dad wrote her. It was confusing because the man who wrote those words was totally different from the father Mom told wonderful stories about. The anger and harshness of the words were unbelievable, but Mom bore them with a smile on the outside and pain and tears whenever no one was looking. Eventually, we came to America, and the verbal abuse became physical. She worked 2 jobs, paid majority of the bills, including a car payment for a car she wasn't allowed to drive. She took multiple buses to work in the rain, snow, and heat, all still convinced there was good in him. I moved out in my late teens and didn't understand why she stayed. In Ghana, she always pleaded with me to keep myself safe from harm and predators because Dad entrusted me, the only girl, to her, and she would like to see the promise fulfilled. Sounds familiar? I always told you that God has entrusted me to do a job, so please let me do with your cooperation. And so you did. When I met your dad, I felt we had a lot in common, and sharing some of the things we went through as children, there was a mutual understanding that we didn't want our children to go through the same. I was so wrong. As years went by, I realized I had married some of the traits in the men from my family. And even though it was easy for me to judge my mom at times, I was doing the same thing she did. This generational curse and culture poisoning needs to stop. We as women are so programmed that we have to suffer for our family, but it's further from the truth. We have to stop protecting and enabling for love's sake. We need to tell our children, both boys and girls, that it's not okay. Love doesn't hurt. God didn't create us to be controlled, manipulated, abused by others using love as an excuse. Many times, you will not get the right support and help from your own family. So you need to find it somewhere else. And I have. And it's also okay to do so. I'm your number 1 supporter, advocate, and steward from God. As long as I have breath in me, we can get through everything and anything with God on our side. So don't ever think you have to compromise yourself in any situation. Be truthful to yourself And always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Thank you. I hope this is reaching a lot of people who are going through, struggles in their lives, marriages, boyfriend, girlfriend. It happens in all situations, in all homes. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. This is real. This is something that's out there in the world. And I pray that my stories will help someone heal as I have. God bless you, and see you next week.